I want to start this sermon by telling you a story from the Hindu scriptures, from the Bhagavata Purana. This is a legend that I actually first heard in one of my divinity school classes studying Krishna. And the story begins with the supreme Lord of the universe, the Lord Krishna, sitting with his mother, Yasoda. Though a deity of immense and incredible power, Krishna is in the form of a child, a baby in his mother's arms. His mother, Yasoda, thinks that she's seen her son eat a bit of dirt, and she starts to scold him. Wrongfully accused, as the legend says, Krishna responds by saying that he hasn't, to which his mother tells him to open up his mouth to prove it. Krishna listens to Yasoda and opens up his mouth, and in shock, Yasoda gasps at what she sees. Instead of seeing a bit or a speck of dirt, she finds the whole cosmos contained in the mouth of her son, the entirety of all creation right there in the face of a child. In a moment, she sees all the stars and planets of space, all of the lands and seas of the earth and the life in them. She sees all of the days of yesterday and tomorrow. She witnesses all ideas and emotions. There is nothing missing, not a pebble, a candle, a creature, a village or galaxy, including both herself and every bit of dirt in its truthful place. Astonished, Yasoda tells her son, "My lord, you can close your mouth." She discovers that this child in her arms, her very own baby boy, is the Lord of all creation. She has an immense reverence for this life cradled in her arms. The deep message of this legend is that the wholeness of the entire universe can be experienced also in any small part of it. Yasoda, in the simple act of looking into her son's mouth, finds that there is the wholeness of life within, all that exists, lives, and breathes. In hearing the portion of the reading this morning that Mary read for us, from helping, fixing, or serving, I was immediately reminded of this tale. You see, I wonder if Harry, the emergency room physician, would feel similarly to Yasoda, looking down into the fresh, clear eyes of this newborn baby in his arms, seeing the wholeness of this precious life. In a fleeting moment, he feels a profound love for this baby girl, knowing that he is the first human being that she has ever seen. Harry feels his heart go out to her as if to welcome her on behalf of all people as she starts her own life's journey in all of its fullness and potential. And Harry leaves this experience changed. He finds that all of his tiredness, exhaustion, and burnout are cast off of his shoulders. He feels this warming love shift something in him, deep in his heart. From all the many babies that he's delivered, he has never once felt this mystical experience of looking into the eyes of some newborn baby, realizing that his service was more than just his expertise. Harry realized that he was serving something far greater than just himself, serving from this warm love for this precious human life, this innate reverence that he carries for all life. And for Harry, he finds that this was all worth it. So this morning, we are continuing on this thread from Soul Matters of cultivating relationship through taking a deeper look at what it means to serve and how this looks in our relationships to one another. I've heard from many of you that this whole paradigm shift of knowing when you're helping, fixing, or serving has been transformative. How for many of you, it's really started to reshape how it is you see yourself and your relationships with others. Though this week, I want to focus in more on how love works in the midst of service. In essence, how it is we can be moved toward care and compassion for our fellow human beings. I think the answer lies somewhere in the stories from Harry and the newborn baby girl, as well as Yasoda looking into Krishna's mouth. The way that this warming love can change us and how we see and love others. So, in fact, this whole sermon can be summed up in one single phrase: let love lead. That's it. That's the sermon. And well, we can all pack up and just leave now. Joking aside, don't leave just yet. There is more that I'd like to expand on in what I mean by letting love lead. So often in our lives, we seem to find it easy to forget the incredible preciousness of the lives of the people we see in our day to day. We aren't always hit face to face with obvious moments to experience life's wholeness, like in seeing the unfurling cosmos in the eyes or mouth of a child. Sometimes we can even forget the wholeness of life found also in the eyes and hearts of grown-ups. We can remain so caught up in life's rhythms, needing to get ready to head out the door for work or for the next obligation or event or thing in our day. For the students in our lives, it could feel like a nonstop scramble to finish homework or essays or assignments, trying also to get that little bit of sleep at night before going to school the next day. We even have those more frustrating moments that seem to just take over in us, making us so quick to dismiss others. Like that one person driving right in front of us that's going way too slow. Come on. Needless to say, even apart from the road rage, there are times when we don't always turn to love and let love lead our lives. Sometimes we don't see our neighbor as an equal, or for their inherent innate worth and dignity as a human being. Believe me, this can be a really hard thing to do at times. I've heard many Unitarian Universalists say for them that to affirm the first principle is perhaps one of the most challenging acts of faith for them to do. Because our neighbors can at times do or say things that we don't often understand, or sometimes we even find painful or senseless. As Unitarian Universalists, we are also given counsel from our second principle, that we should lead our lives with justice, equity, and compassion in our relationships. And if you think about it, I'd even say that we can reduce justice, equity, and compassion down into that one single four-letter word: love. At the root of our pursuits of justice or treating our neighbors with equity and compassion is our own will to love. Deep inside us, as Remen tells us, we have an inward innate knowledge of love that guides and leads us towards service. Love itself is one of the most powerful forces in our lives. With it, we can have grace and understanding for our neighbors and those who are different. And without it, we can even be compelled to leave out or exclude, to speak out through harsh words, judgments, or actions. In thinking about love and letting love lead in our lives, I am caught wondering, what is it that causes us to have this love for one another? What is it that speaks out from deep within our gut or spirit that compels us to see the spark of divinity found in another? And sorrowfully, what can sometimes get in our way? In saying, let love lead, I want to explain that this deeper love that we find through serving others is not a quick or hot passion, though we might confuse it at times. It's not a love that is fleeting or boastful, one that seeks to serve our own egos. Love is not something that burns hot or ragefully within ourselves, moving us to act out of haste or thoughtlessness. Instead, love through service is a warming love. It's a love that takes time to cultivate or time to even notice at times. It's something we hold wisdom and knowledge of deep within our beings. And though gentle, this love is also volatile, volatile as a love that breaks down the barriers we find in ourselves and others. It causes us to see life differently, to experience life's fullness from the perspective of another. It's a love that invites us to follow it, not because of our own wish to serve ourselves, but because we can't help but yearn to also serve others. We find that the wholeness in ourselves is the same as the wholeness that we also see and find in others. We discover that we can tune into this love even in times when we feel like we've lost its signal. This is the love at work in serving one another, a warm love rather than just a burning hot passion. Though we must also be careful in discerning this difference between warm love and hot passion in our service for others. One such admonition comes from a book with quite the fiery title, Against Empathy, The Case for Rational Compassion. Bear with me here. In it, the author Paul Bloom tells us what can go wrong in loving others, especially when we love from a love that is hot with charged emotions. He writes, "So what are the consequences of empathy? Does it make the world a better place? It certainly looks like it. After all, empathy drives people to treat others' suffering as if it were their own, which then motivates action to make the suffering go away. Empathy is like a spotlight, directing attention and aid to where it's needed. But spotlights also have a narrow focus. Spotlights only illuminate what they are pointed at. And although we might intellectually believe that the suffering of our neighbor is just as awful as the suffering of someone living in another country, it's far easier to empathize with those who are close to us, those who are similar to us." Bloom gives caution to what can happen when we don't serve from a place of rational compassion, this place of warm, unending love. Though I don't share his conclusion that empathy itself is an enemy in our quest to love and serve others, I do understand the parts of myself that can so readily empathize with some more than others. It's the same part of myself that can burn hot with wanting to help in some way, to offer suggestions or solutions when these aren't being asked of me. It's the same part that also finds community with people who are similar to myself, who also look and think like I do, who share similar identities and traits, even those who come from similar backgrounds as me. I would reframe this as a caution for all of us, to let love lead through also deeply interrogating it, to simply sit with it when you feel it, when you notice it. When we feel the jump to help or fix, to heed love's warm counsel instead, to wait and listen for what is truly needed of us. To ask if we're truly and fully loving our neighbors as ourselves, as if we can see the entirety of the cosmos, the wholeness of their humanity in their eyes. To notice who we aren't loving enough, those who have yet to find a home with us who are different. Our Time for All Ages story that Claire shared with us provides a model for letting love lead in the right ways. After Taylor's careful, meticulous creation is knocked down, those tiny wooden blocks strewn all over the ground, we see several attempts of the animals to console Taylor. In the heat of the moment, they invite Taylor to talk, to shout out in anger, to laugh, to hide, or to think about it over and over again. It isn't until the rabbit comes that we see a mutual, authentic sense of this warm love. The rabbit simply sits with Taylor, listening. And because of this gentleness, Taylor is finally able to name what they're experiencing. And it's through this that Taylor is given hope for the future. Dear ones, as we leave this morning, I want to invite you to think about love's role in your own life. I invite you to especially consider the great needs of those who are the most vulnerable in our society, the needs of those who are unhoused and hungry, often those who don't get a lot of the spotlight, the same folks that we serve each year as we support the work of Safe Harbor as a congregation. May you let love guide you in your wish to serve others, to dig deep inside yourself to this inward fount of blessing that calls you to love. And in those moments where emotions burn hot within you, may you feel love leading you to that gentler place, one where you might still find hope in the face or the eyes of a stranger. Like how a mother can find immeasurable hope in the promise of her child in your arms. May this transforming spirit lead you into paths of renewed commitment and joy as we live our lives in pursuit of that promise of a better world to come. May it be so, and amen.